Okay, hello everybody. So by now you've had an opportunity to work through the first homework set, and basically there were several data sets that I had you working on in that first data set. I had you working on one of the data sets is called the myopia data set, and this is about spherical equivalent refraction, and so in eyesight. And so I gave you the opportunity to write down the equations for the logistic regression model, to look at scatter plots, really very much in line with what we did together in the lectures when I was using the CHD age data, but you're going to use this other data set to do a lot of the same things. You will see, and you saw in some of the problems in some of these sections, I asked you to write down the likelihood function, things of that nature. That's very nice for you to do. I've really pretty much done it in the solutions. I wouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about that. I think that for this course you really want to be focused on interpretation and data analysis rather than the theoretical part, but of course it's up to you. This gave you an opportunity to write down the likelihood function and things of that nature. And then I had you actually fit the logistic remodel using myopia as the dependent variable and this spherical index as one of the independent variables, and even to plot the logistic probabilities. So all of those things were nice little exercises that you could do. And then I had you start with the ICU data set and asked you a lot of the same kinds of questions. If you feel when you're doing these homeworks that you find redundancies that you don't need to practice, it's okay to skip a section or two. You don't have to feel you have to do absolutely everything. But I think it's a good idea, especially for people who practice helps them understand that all of these problems are there. And so you can then do the ICU data set, and I'm again asking you to write down the regression model, to write down the logit transformation, to do a plot of the data, and then to write down the likelihood function, the log likelihood function, and so on. And then to fit the model of vital status, that is whether the patient lived or died, versus the age of the patient. That should be a piece of cake for everybody. To write down the expression for the probability of dying given age, and to write down the logit. And then to, I have another example where I actually independently calculate the numerator of the probability and the denominator of the probability, and then compute the probability patient by patient. So you've had the opportunity to do that yourself. Or then I show you that you could have done that just as simply by saying predict pi hat, and that would have given you the probability after you ran the logistic model and put that variable into the regression model. And then of course I asked you to draw the, to plot the probabilities. And at that point you might have thought that that was a little odd, because when we plotted other probabilities they looked S-shaped. This one doesn't look S-shaped. This one looks more like a simple curve. And the point is that it is S-shaped, but if you change the coefficients enough, you can flatten it in a way that it'll look like the one that you plotted in the homework set. So not to be disturbed about that, because they don't always look nice in S-shape, but this one was a good example of that. So that's pretty much what I hoped you got out of the first assignment, and we're now ready to start the second week of the course.